Hey class, it's me, Jacob, here once again, and this time for the life history interview assignment. The other day, I interviewed my grandma, Mila, asking her the questions that our professor had assigned to us, and I got some pretty interesting answers. Additionally, my grandma speaks primarily Tagalog, so a lot of the answers I explained for the presentation are going to be translated from Tagalog to English. And the photo that is being shown here is my grandma and my grandpa. I took this photo yesterday. Because we were at a debut. So yeah. So for the first question I went with, I asked her the question regarding her life milestones, which was question three, and which ones were her most significant or favorite. Interestingly enough, she felt that her most compelling accomplishments in life were mainly regarding the family that she was able to make with my grandpa. And she said that her favorite accomplishment in life is to be able to give birth to your dad and his sister and to be able to provide for them. Hearing that, I kind of thought about how older generations typically value providing for their families above everything else. And honestly, my grandma's statement directly reflects that. And I kind of came to the realization that everything she did until that point had always been to the benefit of my family. She also stated that seeing both of her children grow up and be successful and them being able to provide and grow families of their own were really significant milestones for her. Then I asked her about her wedding day, but she didn't really have much to say besides it was good. She talked more about like the family members she had attended that day and that the fact that none of them were here anymore, which was sad. Then I asked her about how she celebrated holidays when she was younger, and she mentioned that they didn't often celebrate special occasions when she was younger. Um, When my grandma was younger, her family didn't really have a lot of money to spare to celebrate things. And her family included her two parents and her two sisters, so they were only really able to cook for themselves whenever there were birthdays or holidays. So yeah, the lavishness of the occasion didn't really matter also because they all had each other. So for my second question, I thought it was pretty good to ask her about her family when she was younger and what kind of roles they played in her life. And that was section one of the assigned interview questions. Hearing about that, she seemed a little bit distant when I asked her, so I tried to keep it as short as possible. Last year she lost one of her sisters not too long ago. Um, so growing up, my grandma said that they were considered a poorer family in the Philippines, and now their parents were able to go to college, and their plans had became kind of shaky due to the Japanese occupation of the Philippines in the 40s. Luckily, she wasn't born yet during this time, but her parents had been adults during this era and they witnessed everything. And despite that, her parents always told her to finish college so that she could live a better life than what they were like able to give her. And because of that, she stated that her parents were strict, but they were also loving. Um, and unfortunately, she doesn't really have very many memories of her grandparents growing up. Um, but she also stated that her parents inspired her and that her sisters inspired her and her sisters to value hard work and that anything is possible as long as you try hard enough. Some extra information is that my grandma was born on March 17th, 1947, and her mom gave birth to her in the Philippines in the city of Manila, which is the capital. After that, I thought it'd be prudent to ask her some questions about how she met my grandpa. And that was question seven of the assignment, because up until this point, I honestly didn't really know much about how they met. Um, So what she told me was that very many years ago, and I think to this day, the Philippine school system had separate boys and girls schools. So there were very few opportunities for her to meet anyone up until she met my grandpa. And they met like on their way home from attending school. And my grandpa made sure to always make an impression whenever they crossed paths. Whenever he got out of school, he made sure that he would go out of his way from going home just to see my grandma. And I thought that was really funny because my grandpa's really shy. And I would have never like imagined him to court her like that. And knowing my grandma, she was pretty intimidating. Um, she has a pretty commanding presence. So someone shy and passive like my grandpa is someone I wouldn't really like imagine falling in love with my grandma. Yeah. Love works in mysterious ways, I guess. And she also told me that she's always had a very good relationship, but that she also made a lot of decisions for the family later on in life, and he would just follow. And hearing that, it made me kind of curious about like what my grandpa does that made her feel loved and safe. And she told me that it is that he listened whenever there was an issue they needed to resolve, and he also did his best not to argue with her. I also then asked her if it was my grandpa who inspired her, but she said that she answered that, or sorry, she said she answered that he was part of it, and that her true inspiration actually came from her kids, which tracks to what she told me earlier. Um, then I asked her like for some advice for younger generations that want to maintain strong family bonds, and she told me to just follow what my wife wants. And honestly, with her tone, I couldn't really tell if it was a joke or not because she was also smiling. And yeah, but I mean, when I think about it, uh, it was kind of clear that it wasn't really a joke because her plan ended up being pretty successful, and my presence is proof of that. So then I asked her about question 8 of the assignment, and that was regarding health and well-being. My grandma emphasized the importance of diet and exercise over the years, and especially because she had just turned 80. So my grandma told me that her line of the family has a history of heart disease and diabetes, and that was evident through like a lot of uncles that I have who have those chronic illnesses, and also my dad who has both. My grandma says that it's really important that she eats fruits and vegetables, and she also uses one of our like pedaling machines to stay active. And this ended up actually answering the questions I was going to ask her regarding what she does to maintain her health. She also added that she's been doing it ever since we lived in her old house, and we lived there maybe like 20 years ago. So, um, yeah, back then we had a bigger bicycle pedaling machine though. Um, she also said that she's always been like consistent with these guidelines, even when she was younger. Um, but she did have pneumonia a couple years back and obviously made a recovery. But other than that, she hasn't had any other like complications. And she credits that to her diet and her activity. And then I tied this to asking her what being healthy meant to her. And she just said that it meant to keep your blood sugar low and to make sure you try your best to not have to use a cane for as long as possible. She basically was poking fun at her late sisters because they had to use a cane at her age and she doesn't. And then I asked her about how she rates her health and what she sees as her main like medical concern. And she said 10 out of 10. But she does think that her main medical concern would be like her ability to walk. Like she can walk totally fine, but she wants to prolong like not needing a cane or like a wheelchair. She also doesn't have any chronic conditions, so I didn't ask her about that. The next question I asked her was like her reflections on aging, which was question 9. I asked her I asked her what her thoughts were on growing older, and she feels like things have really slowed down in her day-to-day life as an 80-year-old. She told me that when she was younger, time really just seemed to pass by really fast because she was busy all the time and at work, busy all the time at school and work. Sorry. Um, but she also like approached her later years in life. Oh, like as she approached them, um, and she had family and like eventually retired. Life has been going like moment by moment for her. She also tried her best to cherish things like the time she spends with relatives as much as possible so they last longer. And I'm so sorry, like it's kind of hard to translate this to English sometimes. Um, so she also said that she said she enjoys not having many obligations like work or housekeeping, and she can just sit in her chair and play mahjong or crossword puzzles without being bothered. Um, she also said that her perception of aging has evolved from something really fast to something really slow. Um, there were some things that happened over the last couple of years that made her wind down, like the passing of her two older sisters. So nowadays she makes sure that everyone's accounted for at each gathering and that she takes care of everybody. Now that she's older, she pays more attention. Um, She also thinks that aging is a graceful thing and that it should be cherished. Um, that she, my grandpa, had been able to live with the song with no issues. Then I asked her if she had any like particular life lessons she'd like to give me, and she just said that I should do my best to take care of my parents when they get older too, and that they are still like included like years from now. And this has always been my plan. So yeah. The next question I asked was about legacy and advice, which was question 10. And she said that the legacy that she'd like to leave is that we all know how to like how important it is that everyone values hard work in life. Because if you like sit there and do nothing, like nothing good is gonna come out of it. Um, and the way I interpret that is that we need to keep our work ethic like really high so that we can enjoy the fruits of our labor and that we can like become strong people who are more independent and knowledgeable. And then she talks about like some relatives that were very hardworking and they ended up living harder lives than other people. And honestly, I kind of hated hearing that because um you never really know what people go through that lead them to like living a harder life. Like what if someone was like really depressed or had an episode and they're just unable to recover from that? Who knows? But I do understand her message. I do want to ensure that I can finish school, get a job, and provide. Then I asked her like what advice she had for younger people entering adulthood, and she said that it was just to enjoy your life and eat fruits and vegetables. Younger folks should still do their best to enjoy the life their parents gave to them. And in addition to that, I also asked her what someone younger like me should do to stay healthy, and she told me to eat well and abstain from alcohol. Apparently we had a lot of uncles that had alcohol problems, so because of that, they were fat and had heart disease. Like that was kind of scary. And for the last question, I asked her about her personal achievements, which was question 12 of the assignment. And she told me that the personal goal she had was that was she was most proud of was seeing her kids graduate from college and being successful here. And I asked her if this was the moment she remembered the most in her life, and she said yes. Seeing her kids graduate made her really proud, and she cried a lot because they were like able to accomplish so much by listening to her. Um, they worked really hard to be able to be in the position they were where they could succeed. And we as a family are more well off because of that. Um, but yeah. Um, I asked her about her dreams or aspirations, and she said she wanted to see me and my cousin graduate from college. And I'm not gonna lie, I got really sad hearing this because I wanted to see her like succeed like later in life too. And to wrap up, I did ask some other questions that like were incorporated here. So one of the questions I didn't get to ask was who she considered to be part of like her support system, and she just said it was her family. She said that like she has a lot of friends, but they don't really like get any personal information from her, so she keeps that barrier up. Then I asked her what motivates her to wake up every day, and um, she pretty much said that even though she's old, she wants to do her best to provide today, even though be it through cooking and helping with the laundry or watering plants. Um, and she also said that that was her ideal day. And I asked her, and she said that it was also because is it was yes because it was also fulfilling. Um, and after that, I asked her what advice she'd give to younger people, to her younger self, and she said nothing. She said that she thinks that like the life that she lived was the best life she could possibly have, and that she wouldn't trade her situation today to anything. Then I asked her what environments make her feel stressed and which ones make her feel calm. And her answer was pretty interesting. She said that because when it's too quiet or when like nothing is happening, that's when she's most stressed. But when she's calmest is when she's providing, like cooking, or when she has a lot of people over. I mean, you'd think it'd be the opposite, but it wasn't. And then finally, I asked her if she could give me one piece of advice about aging and health as I grow older. And she said that I should just do my best to make sure I have a lot of memorable moments before I get really old. She thinks that if I don't enjoy life right now, those opportunities will get fewer and fewer as I get older. And finally, a key factor I learned in this interview was that's related to my health was how important it is to stick to your guns regarding your life values. Because my grandma grew up in a harder situation than most people, her conviction and the lessons that she learned from seeing her parents struggle stuck with her to this very day. And whenever I see her, she never fails to mention how important it is that I work hard and live a successful life so that I can provide in the future. Thank you.